Hey guys, just wanted to add a quick intro to this video. The following is a conversation between myself and James Houghton, driver of the K-Tuned TSX in Gridlife's GLTC races. We talk about how he got started at Gridlife in general, how he got started with the GLTC classes, what he likes about that type of racing, and then we of course went and recapped his past weekend at Mid-Ohio. This was supposed to be a video where we took clips to make shorter form media, but we really actually liked the longer form factor podcast style conversation. If you also liked it, please give us a like below, comment, let us know, and we will interview more drivers streaming on My Races Live.
Okay. So we first saw GLTC kind of form at the beginning of 2019. We were still running the unlimited class Integra and Time Attack, um, and we were really excited to see what was kind of brewing here. We had a lot of really cool drivers, really fast drivers from NASA and SCCA come along, and they wanted to kind of form a series with. I shouldn't say they wanted to form a series. Gridlife wanted to form a series, but they wanted to form a series with some great drivers. But they also wanted to
Mhm.
form a series that had a little bit more flexibility and creativity in terms of the cars. Um, and right off the bat, there was big, crazy differences between some of the cars in the field, and it was really cool. It was really amazing to watch. And we were out there going fast with our unlimited class Integra, but struggling sometimes and thinking, man, these guys are having a lot of fun, and the cars are really cool. And I had already kind of felt like I was to the point where I couldn't hardly keep going anymore with the unlimited class project. And so throughout the season, I was trying to put measures in place to maybe get out of the Integra at the end of that year, and build something for GLTC. And a TSX chassis came along at the end of the
Yeah.
season, and a few months later, after picking the chassis up, we were racing it at Coda in the beginning of 2020. So it's a really amazing series. The diversity is probably not like anything else anywhere in the world, from Caymans to Corvettes to TSX to Miata to BMWs to there was an Evo that ran one of the events last year. It's really incredible, and the drivers are really talented, and it's really fun. But I will say, over the last couple of years, the level of competition has really forced people to probably try harder than they once were,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it has gotten to the point where you have to be almost your whole life fully dedicated if you want to run in the top five of GLTC now. It's really challenging, and it's great and it's rewarding and everything like that. But it's changed a little bit since the beginning. I think at the beginning there was some people running cars towards the front that were, you know, not necessarily working on it every single weekend.
Yeah. And is that like is that a like the classification for it? Is it like a horsepower to weight ratio? Like what are the
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like very high level rules? Like what does it take to enter a car?
So it's 12.5 pounds per horsepower, and then there's
Okay.
modifiers for engine displacement, flat tune, um, splitter, wing, et cetera. It's a 200 treadwear class, um,
Okay.
and the lap times are usually greater than the sum of the rules would suggest. By
Right.
other organizations sometimes look at our lap times and think these guys must be cheating or something like that, because the times are usually faster than what the mods of the car should dictate. But it's just that I always joke, it's like you've got a bunch of guys out here, and the other fellow competitors have guns to their heads, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
there's you cannot make a mistake. You have to be perfect every time if you want to run towards the front of a GLTC series, and it's quite inspiring and exhausting at the same time, but we like it.
Well, the other thing with that I noticed is that like the races are super short, right? So rather than having like, a couple like 30-minute races or 35-minute races, it seems like the races range from like 12 to 15 minutes, but you have like four of them throughout the weekend or something like that. So like it seems like you got to be on the ball from like lap 1, you maybe have like just a few laps and that's the end of the race, right? So I mean, do you like that kind of format of having like these really short races where you got to be kind of like on it from the get-go versus having a bit of a longer race like 30, 35 minutes where you got, not that you have time to dick around, but you do have a bit more time to figure out what the next pass is going to look like, right? Whereas here it seems to be like you got to get going, you got to get past, you got to get to the front as soon as you can, right?
Personally, I really like it because I find that when you go to longer races, sometimes there's too much time of people just kind of playing follow the leader. And
Yeah.
when you're doing 15-minute races with these fields, like every lap, every corner, every second counts, every shift counts. If you miss a shift, like just not wrong gear, but just don't get it in all the way and lose a half a second. You might lose a spot, you might lose two spots, and you might not get that back. Like you really, really, really have to be perfect for the entire race, and that I enjoy that pressure. It's a lot, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah, it's cool. And so, actually, speaking of shifting, I was watching you on the live stream, and I was like, man, his heel toe blips are amazing. And then I watched the camera, and I realized that you weren't heel toeing at all. You have some like magical computer auto rev going on in your car. Is that right, or did I miss see
I,
your foot? Was your foot so fast that I missed it?
I'm going to tell the people listening to this something quite embarrassing for a moment.
Yeah,
I don't heel and toe, and I don't have auto blip in the car. And I'm just trying to be very, very gentle with the clutch take up. I find that there's so many shifts up and down in that car that it seems like a distraction from the braking to be over there blipping.
it is. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've never been one that's like I feel like I'm probably better than average, maybe at driving, but I've never felt like I was very good at footwork, and I feel like because of that, I've gotten pretty good at like gentle clutch releases. So I'm, seemingly don't seem to wear the synchros out in a box too much, and I don't seem to wear the clutch out too much. So I figure if I can get away with those two things the way it is, maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know.
That's
I'm
amazing.
probably
Honestly,
I'm probably the only person in that field that doesn't either have auto blip turned on in their ECU or heel and towing, and I don't think most people are noticing. So maybe that's a good sign.
I mean, it sounded like auto. Like when I was watching, I'm like, holy shit! He's just like putting into gear, not heel towing, but it sounded like you were doing it. So I just assumed the auto blip, but I guess not.
I just try to
But
feel that friction point, and I try to make sure that I don't like jar the transmission on the shift, and it seems to work out okay.
I mean, if it works, man. Keep it going. But speaking of working, maybe we can get into the race because you did seem like you had a few issues in the first couple races. But before we get to the race, I was watching your quali or practice. I can't remember which event, which one it was. But anyway, you seemed like your rear end was pretty loose. Like you were coming through turn one, and a couple of times, like you were getting like full on sideways. Turning that wheel to try and catch the car. Did you find that the car was pretty loose in the rear for the session this past weekend?
So when GLTC first formed, front wheel drive got a 3% modifier on. In my opinion, it's probably kind of what it needs to be.
Yeah,
Um, and as Eric Attil and myself are probably the most notable names in front wheel drive and GLTC, we've done fairly well, and we've tried really hard. And because we've tried really hard, I feel like we've kind of burned that, and we're down to a 1% bonus now, 1% of total weight or total power, like 1% less power or 1% more power or 1% less weight that we get
yeah,
for front wheel drive now. And in my opinion, it's probably not enough to counteract that. And because of that, if you're racing a front wheel drive car at the front in GLTC, you have to try really hard. And if you get that thing uh, much tighter than it is, like much more understeer than it is currently, it will just bake the tires by the end of a race. And the rear wheel drive cars have such a good balance the whole time, it makes it really
yeah.
really difficult. So at some point, we'll probably consider doing an in-car adjustable rear sway bar, which might help a little bit. But one of the main things was this weekend why it was probably extra loose is we had some pretty bad bump steer issues with that car, and we finally just fixed it leading into Mid Ohio. In the front end, it's always loose, but it was extra loose this weekend, and the front end was working so much better that it actually felt like the rear end couldn't keep up. We also run a really big tire stagger on that with a 315 in the front and a 255 in the rear, so
Oh
that
wow,
probably
okay.
contributes to it a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But definitely the front end working so well this weekend definitely contributed to that bit of a loose condition.
Yeah, I mean, as a viewer, it's cool to see, right? So it shows you working and the car sliding. It's always more exciting. But as a driver, they may not be optimal. But it seemed like you were handling it and you were going quick, so it all worked out.
Yeah.
Let's get to the races. Race one, there seemed to be an issue. Can you talk really quickly
Well,
about what happened in race one?
I'll mention really quick in qualifying that we
Yeah.
actually got our first ever pole. So that was we had
Ah,
never
congrats.
qualified
That's
on pole
awesome.
before. We've probably had, I don't know, 5 or 6 second places. I'm not counted them. At least four
Yeah.
second places in the past, and we've been really close many times. But as I said, it's really tough. So it was nice to get pole. So we started first for the next race, and
Yep.
Eric Catil just happened to sneak by. through madness, and we were kind of following along. Felt like we had more pace than him. I felt like I could have definitely got him. I was just kind of buying my time and seeing where the run was going to get created. And we lost fourth gear. And I knew that we had a spare transmission there. I knew that that box had a little bit of runtime on it, so I wasn't as worried about really wrecking it. So I thought, well, I'm going to go third, fifth, sixth, and try to keep on going here, because we were still running second at the time, and I knew Luke and Matan with the Corvettes were right behind me, but I thought might be able to hang on to fourth, if not, worst case fifth or sixth. And we were kind of hopeful to finish there. And fragments from the fourth gear got between the final drive and the bell housing of the transmission, and
Oh
it
yeah.
just made an absolute mess in there. So we ended up finishing. We ended up DNFing in race number one. The guys did a great job and finished the transmission swap that night. And somehow we ended up with a tiny, tiny, tiny oil leak for the oil pressure sensor for race number two. So we probably could have been in a good position to battle back through the field for the final race. But in race number two, I had to pull off from the oil leak, and then we were
Yeah.
relegated to the B race because there was such a big field this weekend. So in race number three, we had to start dead last basically, and we battled our way up to fourth. And on the last lap of that race, we set the GLTC track record for Mid Ohio, which is kind of a cool record to have because it's the first place that GLTC ever raced back in 2019. So we
Oh,
went
that's
a
very cool.
34.8 on the last lap, and that's 34.8 with around 256 wheel horsepower, 3,320 pounds, no splitter, no wing on street tires. So if anyone is a Mid Ohio fan, it's
They'll know.
it's pretty fast for the sum of the parts there. So we were very proud of that. And then with the AB weekend, on the after race three, they don't move the people back in. The top five normally get moved up, but
I
between
see.
race three and race four, they don't do that change. So we had to start in the B race again for race number four. There was a 10-car invert. Um, we ended up starting seventh for the last race, and uh, we won. We won the last race. We got to the lead after a couple of laps, and because we were in the B race because of our mechanical issues, it wasn't the most exciting win. But we decided we wanted to get the car back out there, get some more testing in, and we don't normally do a lot of testing in because we're get a lot of testing in because we're sometimes worried about reliability issues. But Mid Ohio is my favorite track to drive, and we're there. The guys are there already. If they fix the car at the track, we don't have to fix it back at the shop later. Um,
Yeah.
so we decided to use those couple more races just as a test, and really happy with what the results were.
Yeah, I mean, watching those two races, obviously, it's not ideal for you to be starting in the back like that. But I mean, obviously, as a viewer, it's pretty fun to watch because you're kind of making your way through the field. It's more exciting. You're doing a bunch of passing, and like, so as a viewer, it's pretty fun to watch that happen. Race three was cool. So how does it work with So A B, is that just like a split on qualifying? So basically, they
Yeah,
cut the
yeah,
field off after. Okay, and then when you
yeah.
race
So
in B and you finish like first in B, that's really like
it
far
it
back in
pays
terms of
this
the
it
whole
pays this
race.
yeah it pays the same points as 17th for A to win B.
Got
So
it.
it's
Okay.
kind of when you're trying to win, when you're trying to compete in the championship, it doesn't really. You're kind of just there for fun at that point, right? Um,
Got it.
but and we did have fun. So we went 28th to fourth in race three, and then seventh to first in race four. We took our time coming through the field. I don't like to bully the guys in B because some of them are not quite as quick or don't have quite as much experience,
Yeah.
and so some of the guys started some of the faster guys that also had mechanicals that were in B started towards the front of that race, and so there was a huge gap. There was like a 25-second gap between third and fourth. So when I cleared for fourth place, I couldn't even see the guys anymore in the top three. When I came out of turn one, the one lap, I saw Eric Magnuson, who won race number three with a gold E46 M3 LS
Yeah.
swapped. He was coming down into China Beach when I was coming out of turn one. There was that big of a gap.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, that's crazy. Yeah. So so I hadn't realized the whole AB thing. So when we were watching it, we were trying to figure out what happened because at the end we saw the standings and you only got like not very many points, so we couldn't figure out like
No,
how this whole thing worked. But yeah, that's what clears it up, which is cool. But even in race four, like you had a bit of a battle for P1, right? So there was like 2 or 3 laps there where you were like, uh, battling with a guy in front. I can't remember the guy's name. So I apologize, but it looked like you
yeah,
guys
no
had
problem.
pretty
It
good fight.
was Kevin Zhu with Blue HN Civic SI. So
That's
he's
right.
a super nice guy, nice good competitor, and I knew that we had a very good chance of winning that race, so I didn't bother. I didn't bother putting too much pressure on him, and so we just kind of had fun for a couple laps. I just had fun for a couple laps and just bide our time.
Yeah, and then you pulled away, and yeah, it was cool. It's cool to watch. Okay, a couple more questions really quickly. We made a video, so we went to Mid Ohio like a few weeks ago. We were there for WRL. We did end
Nice.
up driving, unfortunately, because the car wasn't working. But we
Oh, sorry
did.
to hear that.
Yeah, it's yeah, you know how this racing happens. We did make a video about the carousel because it was pretty slippery, and it seems like a lot of cars go off at the carousel in Mid Ohio. Do you find that to be like one of the trickiest corners on that track, or where around Mid Ohio specifically do you find it kind of tricky?
So they had a repave at Mid Ohio at the beginning of the year, and
Yep.
they had some really really heavy rains at the beginning of the week. So when I got there on Thursday night and we were out on track on Friday morning, the track felt like I remember I drove Watkins Glen. Can't remember if you were there in like 2016 or 17, right after they paved Watkins Glen for the Champ Car event, but it felt like if you overdrove the corner, your tires would actually kind of shudder.
Mm.
Um, and that's how it felt like on Friday. And it didn't really feel slippery. It just felt weird, like you'd get this tire shudder if you overdrove the corner. And I know some people had some really, really irregular tire wear and tire damage from, I think, overdriving, um, maybe potentially overdriving on those conditions. But over the course of the weekend, like there's so many cars at a Grid Life event, right? Like there was between Time Attack GLTC and the Open Lappers, there was 300 cars there, and the track seemed to rubber up really, really nice by the end of the weekend. And I think it was still getting faster at the end
Oh,
of the
sweet.
weekend. The rubber seemed to help it
Yeah.
a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, because we noticed that like when we were there, it was like a ton of cars are going off at carousel, and I mean, we weren't sure. I mean, we went around the car, sorry, around the track, and like there was an HPD event the morning of the race, and we took out one of the guys' like rental cars or whatever it was, and we did a couple laps, and even during the race, a ton of cars went off at carousel, so we weren't sure if
Interesting.
it was like super tricky or maybe just the repave was enough for it to be slippery at the time. This was early in the year. I think actually the WRL race we were at was the first race after the repave. They had
I
not
heard
done
that that
any
track felt
races.
super. Yeah, I had heard that that track for the first few events was like super super weird after the repave. One of our competitors, Luke McGrew, was there. I think in May, maybe in
Yeah.
May, and he
Yeah.
was commenting on how like absolutely weird the track felt, and this tire wear was um, really nice, but like almost looked like a belt sander went to it. Like no marbles being picked up at all or nothing. It seemed like
Oh, that's
that
crazy.
track has really struggled to pick up rubber, but I think after this past weekend, I think that maybe it'll keep the rubber that it's got now, and hopefully it'll kind of build off of it from there. Because we did get a little bit of rain on Friday night, and the track still felt really great on Saturday morning. So I think we're in the right direction there.
Oh, that's awesome. Good stuff. All right, cool. We can probably wrap it up here. When and where are you racing next? When can you find out what's happening
We will
next?
be at Road America on, I believe the dates are July 26th to 28th. We'll be there like the Friday and the Saturday.
Okay, sweet, awesome. I'll look
So
forward
we're
to seeing
very
you there.
much looking to that. They've got Dead Mouse going that weekend for one of their main
Oh, that
performers,
should be
and
fun.
I think they're doing drift on full track, and I'm going to be driving at least one other time attack car there, and potentially three. So that should be quite a busy and fun weekend.
Sweet. Do you want to give any shout outs to your sponsors or anybody you want to thank for your racing this year?
Yeah, for sure. Give a big shout out to K-Tune and Unit Two Fabrication. Those guys have made make everything possible, and the whole rest of our sponsor list. Without the support of everyone, it would just simply not be possible. So, no. Uh, so yeah, K-Tune Unit Two Fab. Falcon Tire came on board last year. That's a huge deal because
Nice. Yeah.
you're always wanting to run as fresh of tires as you can run, and we
Yep.
were running their tires already, but sometimes trying to get them the last 2 or 3 weekends. So the fact that we've been able to be on fresher tires this year has been a big improvement. Levine Motorsports does all the ECU calibrations for us. Um, TDT Racing, he does all of our electronics. Ivan's Auto Service does all of our alignments and all of our tire mounting and everything like that, as well as all the service on all of our dailies. Koenig wheels, we've been running those exclusively for I don't even know how many years now, 7 years or something like that now.
Yep.
Link ECU, we've been really really happy with that. that's typically what Levine Motorsports likes to use, and through his suggestion, we've gone that route and been very happy. C17 Auto Armor did the wrap on that car originally 5 years ago, and have done quite a few repairs on it since, and it's still looking pretty nice.
It's a great looking car for sure. Yeah, and it stands out on the field. Certainly, when you're watching the stream, you can spot that car from a mile away. So it looks great.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple more here. Momentum Motorsports, they supply us with our limited slip differentials are from a company called 3J. Team Rip Engineering do build our transmissions for us and do some of the gear preparation and stuff like that, trying to eke out as much life as they can. StimTech are our local machinists who were the ones that really helped us get the pieces that we needed to dial in the bump steer leading up to that. And then G-Lock brakes and E-World Performance supply us with our G-Lock brakes, and we've been running that R16 compound on the front of almost everything I drive for, I don't know, 8 years now or something like that, and I wouldn't even consider running a different brake pad.
That's awesome. Cool. All right, man. I'm gonna stop the recording here. Give me 1 second. Thanks a lot for coming on, by the way. I really appreciate you spending time
Absolutely.
to go over it and spending the time to live stream. We've obviously enjoyed watching the live stream. I know there was like a few viewers in there and people in the chat also. So it's been fun to watch, and we look forward to watching the next race.
Well, I appreciate that, and we'll keep on trying to post about it more and stuff like that, and try to gain some more viewership there.